That's the book, and this is going to be chapter 1. Now, the author wrote this to Alexandra and Christiana, and I'm reading it to Alexander and Will. 1. Yali, Sri Lanka, December 26, 2004. I thought nothing of it at first. The ocean looked a little closer to our hotel than usual. That was all. A white foamy wave had climbed all the way up to the rim of sand where the beach fell abruptly down to the sea. You never saw water on that stretch of sand. It was our friend, Orlantha, who alerted me. A short while before, she'd knocked on our door to ask if we were ready to leave. We almost were. Steve was in the shower, or reading on the toilet, more likely. Our 2 boys were on the back veranda, buzzing around their Christmas presents. This was Yala, a national park on the southeastern coast of Sri Lanka. White-bellied seagulls abound here, and for Vikram, they were the most splendid of birds. For a nearly 8-year-old Vikram knew heaps about birds. A pair of sea eagles nested near the lagoon that edged this hotel in Yala, and he'd sit on a rock on the lagoon's shore and wait hours, hungry for a glimpse of them. They always turned up, as reliable as the tooth fairy. We had spent 4 days here with my parents in less than a week. Steve, the boys, and I would be flying home to London. We had driven down to Yala from Colombo on the morning after Mali's violin concert. Not that Mali had any commitment to the violin. It was being on stage he loved. He stood there, mimicked the little girl next to him, flourishing his bow with convincing exactness. "He's faking it, Mum, he's faking it," Vic whispered to me that night at the concert. Impressed by his 5-year-old brother's brazen nerve, our friend Orlantha gave Mali violin lessons on our trips to Sri Lanka. She had taken a break from living in Los Angeles to teach in Colombo for a few years, and her children's orchestra was thriving. It was called Strings by the Sea. Now, Orlantha and I chatted in the doorway of this hotel room. We hadn't planned to come to Yala together. She was with her parents, who were on holiday from the States. She watched the antics of my boys now and told me that she loved to start a family soon. "What you guys have is a dream," she said. It was. Then she saw the wave. "Oh my God, the sea's coming in." That's what she said. I looked behind me. It didn't seem that remarkable or alarming. It was only the white curl of a big wave. But you couldn't usually see breaking waves from our room. You hardly noticed the ocean at all. It was just a glint of blue above the wide spread of sand that sloped sharply down to the water. Now the froth of a wave had scaled up this slope and was nearing the tall conifers that were halfway between our room and the water's edge. Incongruous, those trees in this landscape of a brittle thorny shrub. This was peculiar. I called out to Steve in the bathroom. "Come out, Steve, I want to show you something odd." I didn't want him to miss this. I wanted him to come out quick before all this foam dissolved. "In a minute," Steve muttered, with no intention of rushing out. Then there was much more white froth. And more. Vic was sitting by the back door, reading the first page of The Hobbit. I told him to shut that door. It was a glass door with 4 panels, and he closed each one, then came across the room and stood by me. He didn't say anything. He didn't ask me what was going on. The foam turned into waves, waves leaping over the ridge where the beach ended. This was not normal. The sea never came in this far. Waves not receding or dissolving. Closer now, brown and gray, brown or gray. Waves rushing past the conifers. and coming closer to our room. All these waves now, charging, churning, suddenly furious, suddenly menacing. "Steve, you've got to come out, now." Steve ran out of the bathroom, tying his sarong. He looked outside. We didn't speak. I grabbed Vic and Mally and we all ran out the front door. I was ahead of Steve. I held the boys each by their hand. "Give me one of them! Give me one of them!" Steve shouted, reaching out. But I didn't. That would have slowed us down. We had no time. We had to be fast. I knew that. But I didn't know what I was fleeing from. I didn't stop for my parents. I didn't stop to knock on the door of my parents' room, which was next to ours. On the right as we ran out, I didn't shout to warn them. I didn't bang on their door and call them out. As I ran past, for a splintered second, I wondered if I should, but I couldn't stop. It will stall us. We must keep running. I held the boys tight by their hands. We have to get out. We fled towards the driveway at the front of the hotel. The boys ran as fast as I did. They didn't stumble or fall. They were barefoot, but they didn't slow down because stones or thorns were hurting them. They didn't say a word. Our feet were loud, though. I could hear them, slamming the ground. Ahead of us, a jeep was moving fast. Now it stopped. A safari jeep with open back and sides and a brown canvas hood. The jeep was waiting for us. We ran up to it. I flung Vikram into the back, and he landed face down on the green, corrugated metal floor. Steve jumped in and picked him up. We were all inside now. Steve had Vic on his lap. I sat across from them with Molly on mine. The man was driving the jeep. I didn't know who he was. Now I looked around me and nothing was unusual. No frothing waters here, only the hotel. It was all as it should be. The long rows of rooms with clay-tiled roofs, the terracotta floors of the open corridors, the dusty, orange-brown gravel driveway thick with wild cactus on both sides. All there. The waves must have receded, I thought. I hadn't seen Orlantha run with us, but she must have done. She was in the jeep. Her parents had rushed out of their room as we came out of ours, and now her father, Anton, was with us too. Orlantha's mother, Bula, Bella, was hoisting herself into the jeep, and the driver revved the engine. The jeep jerked forward as she lost her grip and fell off. The driver didn't see this. I told him to stop. I kept yelling to him that she had fallen out, but he kept going. Bella lay on the driveway and looked up at us as we pulled away. She half smiled in confusion, it seemed. Anton leaned out the back to reach Bella and drug her up. When he couldn't, he jumped out. They were both lying on the gravel now, but I didn't call out to the driver to wait for them. He was driving very fast. He's right, I thought. We have to keep moving. Soon we will be away from the hotel. We were leaving my parents behind. I panicked now. If I had screamed at their door as we ran out, they could have run with us. We didn't get Aichi and Sia, I yelled to Steve. This made Vikram cry. Steve held on to him, clasping him to his chest. Aichi and Sia will be okay. They will come later. They will come, Steve said. Vic stopped crying and snuggled into Steve. I was thankful for Steve's words. I was reassured. Steve is right. There are no waves now. Ma and Da, they will walk out of their room. We will get out of here first, and they'll join us. I had an image of my father walking out of the hotel. There were puddles everywhere. He had his trousers rolled up. I'll ring Ma on her mobile as soon as I get to a phone, I thought. We were nearing the end of the hotel driveway. We were about to turn left onto the dirt track that runs by the lagoon. Steve stared at the road ahead of us. He kept banging his heel on the floor of the Jeep. "Hurry up! Get a move on!" The Jeep was in water then. Suddenly, all this water inside the Jeep. Water sloshing over our knees. Where did this water come from? I didn't see those waves get to us. This water must have burst out from beneath the ground. What is happening? The Jeep moved forward slowly. I could hear its engine straining, snarling. We can drive through this water, I thought. We were tilting from side to side. The water was rising now, filling the Jeep. It came up to our chests. Steve and I lifted the boys as high as we could. Steve held Vic and I held Molly. Their faces above the water, the tops of their heads pressing against the Jeep's canvas hood, our hands tight under their armpits. The Jeep rocked. It was floating, the wheels no longer gripping the ground. We kept steadying ourselves on the seats. No one spoke, no one uttered a word. Then I saw Steve's face. I'd never seen him like that before. A sudden look of terror, eyes wide open, mouth agape. He saw something behind me that I couldn't see. I didn't have time to turn around and look, because it turned over. The Jeep turned over on my side. Pain. That was all I could feel. Where am I? Something was crushing my chest. I am trapped under the Jeep, I thought. I am being flattened by it. I tried to push it away. I wanted to wiggle out. But it was too heavy. Whatever was on me, the pain unrelenting in my chest. I wasn't stuck under anything. I was moving. I could tell now. My body was curled up. I was spinning fast. Am I underwater? It didn't feel like water, but it has to be, I thought. I was being dragged along and my body was whipping backwards and forwards. I couldn't stop myself. When at times my eyes opened, I couldn't see water, smoky and gray. That was all I could make out. And my chest, it hurt like it was being pummeled by a great stone. This is a dream. It's one of those dreams where you keep falling, and then you wake up. I was sure of this now. I pinched myself, again and again. I could feel the nip on my thigh, through my trousers, but I wasn't waking up. The water was pulling me along with a speed I did not recognize, propelling me forward with a power I could not resist. I was shoved through the branches of trees and bushes, and here and there my elbows and knees smashed into something hard. If this is not a dream, I must be dying. It can be nothing else, this terrible pain. That Jeep turned over and now something is killing me. But how can I be dying? Just now, I was in our hotel room. Just now, I was with the boys. My boys. My mind shook itself. It tried to focus. Vic and Molly. I can't die. For them. I have to stay alive. I was too ferocious, though. The force on my chest. I only wanted for it to stop. If I'm dying, please, hurry up. But I don't want to die. Our life is good, I thought. I don't want it to be over. We have much more to do. So much. Yet I had to surrender to this unknown chaos. I can sense that. I'm going to die. I'm nothing against whatever it is that has me in its grip. What to do? It's over. Finished. I gave up. But as I went whirling in the water, I did feel disappointed that my life had to end. This cannot be happening. Only now, I was standing by the door. I was talking to Arlantha. And what was that she said? A dream? What you guys have is a dream? That's what she said. Her words came back to me now. I cursed her for saying that. All at once I saw brown water, no more smoky gray, but billowing brown water, way into the distance as far as I could see. My head was above the water now. Still, I was being swept along at such a speed. There was nothing I could hold. I flung about. There are trees swirling around me. What is this about? I was with Vic in our room. He wants to wear his New England cricket shirt. We are driving back to Colombo soon. I've put the shirt out on the bed. This has to be a dream, I thought. I tasted salt. Water battered my face. It went up my nose. It burned my brain. For a long while, I didn't realize that the pain in my chest had stopped. I was floating on my back. A blue, spotless sky. A flock of storks was flying above me, in formation, necks stretched out. These birds were flying in the same direction that the water was taking me. Painted storks, I thought. A flight of painted storks across a yellow sky. I'd seen this thousands of times, a sight so familiar, it took me out of the mad water. Watching storks with Vic, laughing with him about their pterodactyl-like flight for a moment or two. That's where I was. Vic and Mally. I thought again. I can't let myself die here in whatever this is. My boys. A child was floating towards me. A boy. His head above the water, he was screaming. Daddy, Daddy. He was clinging to something. It looked like the broken seat of a car. There was yellow foam or rubber inside. He was lying on top of it, as if he was bodyboarding. From a distance, I thought this boy was Mally. I tried to reach him. The water slammed into my face and pushed me back, but I managed to get near to the boy. Come to Mommy, I said out loud. Then I saw his face up close. He wasn't Mal. The next instant, I was knocked sideways, and the boy was gone. I was falling through rapids. The water was plummeting. There was a man. He was being tossed about in his torrent. He was facing downwards. He had a black t-shirt on. Only that. Was that Steve? I wondered. Maybe it's Steve. His sarong's come off. I thought this calmly at first, and then I panicked. No, it can't be Steve. Don't let it be him. There was a branch hanging over the water. I was floating towards it on my back. I have to clutch that branch, I told myself. Somehow I must. I knew I'd go racing under it, so I had to lift up my arms in time to have any chance of catching it. The water thrashed my face, but I tried to keep my eyes fixed on that branch. Then I was under it, and I reached out, but the branch was nearly behind me. I threw my arms back a little and grabbed, holding on. My feet were on the ground. My eyes couldn't focus. But I saw then the toppled trees everywhere. I could make those out. Trees on the ground with their roots sticking up. What is this? A swamp? I was in an immense bogland. Everything was one color, brown, reaching far. This didn't look like Yala, where the ground was dry and cracked and covered in green shrub. What is this knockdown world? The end of time? I was bent double. I couldn't straighten. I held my knees. I was panting hard, choking. There was sand in my mouth. I retched and coughed up blood. I kept spitting and spitting. So much salt. My body felt very heavy. My trousers. They are weighing me down, I thought. I took them off. What happened to those waves? There are pools of still water around me, but no waves. Are these lakes or lagoons? I couldn't keep steady. My feet sank in sludge. I stared into this unknown landscape, still wondering if I was dreaming, but fearing, almost knowing I was not. It was only then that I wondered what happened to everyone. Could they be dead? They must be. They must be dead. What am I going to do without them? I thought, still panting, still spitting. I couldn't keep balance. I was sliding in mud. I heard voices. Distant at first, then close. It was a group of men shouting to each other in Sinhala. They couldn't see me or me them. One of them said, Mahuda Guda Galala, Mahasoni Avila. The ocean has flooded. Mahasona is here. Mahasona, I knew the word. But what was he saying? I had last heard that word when I was a child, and our nanny told us stories about ghouls and demons. Mahasona, he is the demon of graveyards. Even in my complete bewilderment, I understood. Something dreadful had happened. There was death everywhere. That's what the man was shouting about. That voice called out again, Is anyone here? You can come out now. The water's gone. We are here to help. I didn't budge or make a sound. I felt too exhausted to speak. Then a child's voice. Help me, save me. I was washed away. I heard the men come closer to find the child, and I stayed silent, bent over, holding my knees. The men spotted me and ran over. They spoke to me, but I didn't reply. They said I should go with them. We must hurry. There could be another wave. I kept shaking my head and refusing. I was too tired, and without my boys, how could I leave? What if they'd survived? They might be near here somewhere. I couldn't leave them behind. But I couldn't say this out loud. I couldn't ask these men to search for them. I couldn't tell them that we had been thrown out of the Jeep into the water. Telling them would make it too real. The men were impatient. They talked among themselves. They couldn't leave me here. But we can't take her like this, one of them said. She has no trousers on. What? I thought. He took off his shirt and tied it around my waist. They pulled me along. I still felt heavy. My legs dragged through mud. It was deep, knee-high slime. A few times I fell over, and they hauled me up. We saw a man lying under a bush who was wearing only a loincloth. One of the men with me went up to him. He's dead, came back and said. He mentioned a name, and I recognized it. He was a fisherman who lived in a small hut on the beach by the hotel. Steve and I would talk to him. He would try to sell conch shells to the boys. They'd press those shells against their ears to listen to the hum of the ocean. I looked away from this man, now motionless in the sand. I didn't want to see anyone dead. They took me to a van and we drove a short distance. When the van stopped, I knew where I was. We were at the ticket office at the entrance to the national park. I knew this building well. I'd been here hundreds of times since I was a child, to buy tickets and to pick up a ranger to guide us in the park. Vic and Mally sometimes went into the small museum in this building at the entrance to. It was an enormous pair of elephant tusks. The building looked no different now, all intact. No trace of water, no puddles of uprooted trees around it. This dry breeze on my face, it's a normal breeze. The men carried me out of the van and took me inside. I knew several people who worked here. I could see them now, milling around, staring at me. Looking concerned, I turned away from them. I didn't want them to see me like this, shaking, sopping wet. I sat on a green concrete bench in the museum, which had half walls and peeling green paint and thick wooden pillars that held up the roof. I hugged my knees into my chest and stayed at the palu trees outside. Was it real? What just happened? That water. My crumpled mind couldn't tell, and I wanted to stay in the unreal, in the not knowing. So I didn't speak to anyone, ask them anything. A phone began to ring. No one picked it up. So it rang and rang. It was loud, and I wanted it to stop. I wanted to stay in my stupor, staring into trees. What if they survived? I couldn't help thinking. Steve might come here with the boys. Maybe someone found all of them, just as they found me. If they are brought here, the boys will be clinging to Steve. Daddy, Daddy. Their shirts would have been torn off. It will be cold. Vic would always be shaking and shivering when he went swimming. The water in the pool was a little bit chilly. White truck pulled up. A young girl was carried out. There were bruises on her face and twigs and leaves stuck to her hair and clothes. I'd seen this girl before. She was in the room next to us, in the hotel with her parents. Vic and Mally will look wet and scared like this girl if they are brought here now. Will they have leaves tangled in their hair? They both had haircuts before we left London. Haircuts. I couldn't hold the thought of haircuts. There was a boy sitting on the same bench as me. He looked about 12, a little older maybe. This was the boy who called for help just before those men found me. They brought him here with me in that van. This boy wouldn't stop talking now, shouting. Where are his parents? He wants them. He was having breakfast with them at the hotel. They saw the waves. They ran. He was swept away. He said this is over and over, but I ignored him. I didn't acknowledge his presence or respond to anything he said. The boy began to cry now. Are his parents dead? He asked. He was wearing only a pair of shorts, and his body was shaking, and his teeth chattered. And he kept walking around the glass cabinets, which displayed skeletons of marsh crocodiles and pythons. There was also the nest of a weaver bird, which always intrigued Vic. It's like a real house, Melly. Can you see the different rooms? The boy kept walking back and forth and crying. I wanted him to stop. Someone brought a large towel and wrapped it around his shoulders. Still, the boy sobbed, but I didn't speak to him. I didn't try to comfort him. Stop blubbling, I thought. Shut up. You only survived because you are fat. That's why you didn't die. You stayed alive in that water because you are so fucking fat. Vic and Mally didn't have a chance. Just shut up. That's enough for chapter 1. It comes to page break. Love you, boys.